My name is Renim. I've been making warpaints on the Steam Workshop for a few years now. When it comes to the warpaint system, I consider myself to be one of the more knowledgeable people outside of Valve themselves on the creation of warpaints. From spending the last several years researching and documenting the inner workings of the system behind the scenes, I can say with confidence that warpaints are not living up to their full potential and need a major rework. For those of you who aren't aware of what a warpaint is a cosmetic type that involves applying a set of seamless textures onto 44 different weapons that appear within the game. Warpaints can only be applied to these specific 44 weapons and one canvas, which is used as an icon for the unapplied warpaint item. These were added in 2016 during the Jungle Inferno update and replaced the previous iteration of this concept, which Valve themselves still refer to as warpaints. But the community refers to them as decorated weapons to differentiate them from before JI, which are set up to function on an individual weapon basis, and after JI, which are set up to work on the new template system. For this video, I'll be referring to them as pre-JI warpaints. However, as again, Valve sees them as warpaints all the same. Currently, the way that Valve implements warpaints is very limiting. All you can do is replace the set of textures on pre-existing warpaints from JI onwards with no further changes being made as of Screen Fortress 2021. Previously, if the creator requested a change to the template that you're reskinning, Valve would be willing to make those changes on your behalf. These things include turning on albedo tinting for Saccharine Striped, since Macabre Mark II did not originally have this. Or enabling a custom inner wear texture like the one given to Necromanced, as the original template of Getty Coded didn't have this originally either. Which leads to another problem. Valve is very hit or miss on what they will or will not implement from what the creator requests. Peppermint Swirl was meant to have a custom inner wear texture exactly like Necromanced. Saccharine Striped had albedo tinting enabled, but Ghoul Blaster, Team Serviced, Secretly Serviced, and a number of others didn't. Valve updated the warpaint icon for Hypergon to make it more accurate to the original submission's thumbnail. Valve updated the Broken Bones warpaint icon to fix the seam, but didn't on Starlight Serenity or Steel Brushed. They fixed an issue with the Back Scratcher's warpaint texture, but did not fix it for the disciplinary action, Bizarre Bargain, Degreaser, or Iron Bomber. Changes are very hit or miss, and a number of creators are now reluctant to even ask for changes because they don't want to risk Valve not fully understanding what something meant in a notepad document and then skipping over what they asked for. 5 out of the 10 warpaints added during summer 2023 were not implemented correctly. Team Serviced, Secretly Serviced, and Mechanized Monster were intended to have albedo tinting enabled. Warborn had its sticker removed, and Sky Stallion was intended to have albedo tinting, a new custom blood texture, and the checkerboard texture being locked from rotating. Valve as of late has been allowing cosmetic creators to update their cosmetics, sometimes including full model and texture reworks well after release. With warpaints, however, whenever Valve gets alerted to these improper implementations, the creators would get no response or be told, people might like the current version of this item. Why allow one type to get updated to fix issues but not another? I can understand that somebody might like the current version, but then why did High Rollers get updated to give it albedo tinting, when Workshop submissions who requested it for their warpaints did not? Why did Valve decide to change many of the warpaint submissions from what was originally intended? As an example here, Spirit of Halloween wasn't originally a reskin of Autumn Mark II. It was originally a reskin of Flower Power and Brain Candy, which were pre-JI warpaints. The pre-JI warpaints don't have the same code format internally as post-JI warpaints. And because Valve wanted to add it to the game, they picked a template at random. Hell, even the previously mentioned Necromant did not get implemented correctly. Because while it did get its custom inner wear texture, it also was meant to have a team-colored sticker. The eyes were meant to be yellow on blue team as opposed to red. The reason for this cut is because Valve specifically coded stickers to not have a team-colored variant at all. While any other texture can be team-colored, including blood, dirt, and scratches, stickers under any circumstances cannot be team-colored, as they are not specifically texture layers internally. This is not the fault of the creator of Necromance in the slightest. It is a fair assumption to assume that if all other textures can be team-colored, so should stickers, right? Valve should have mentioned something about how stickers are not able to be team-colored anywhere. What is or isn't possible with the system shouldn't be a guessing game. Let's go over a few things that aren't common knowledge. Did you know that stickers have the ability to be shiny just like textures themselves do? The way to do so is incredibly simple. All you need is a grayscale copy of the sticker, ending its name with an _S. As it currently stands, all the warpaints without this file are utilizing a failsafe to fix an issue where the warpaint would not load if the _S file was missing. This function was used by High Roller and Coffin Nail. Why wasn't this feature utilized outside of Tough Rake? The reason being that Valve never told anyone that it's possible with a new system. Even though you can have custom blood textures, you can only have one as opposed to the 3 that exist by default. This is because the blood texture is swapped out with the wear template that's set for each weapon. It uses the same internal variable name for all 3, and how you swap it out is by replacing the blood texture in the warpaint code header and turning off its inheritance so it only reads from the warpaint header, because the header has a higher priority than the wear template. Did you know that the gradient texture for Leopard Printed and Tiger Buffed is bugged and won't select past the top left corner of the texture? Or how about the gradient texture for Autumn Mark II and Spirit of Halloween, which have a similar problem? If you want to use these templates, you need to work within these invisible restrictions. The lack of guidelines is another factor for why warpaints are in their current state. Does Valve want CSGO-styled custom paint jobs? Does Valve want stickers with a specular attached? Would Valve let you make your own set of VMTs? We don't know. And we don't even know if Valve will do things like enable custom scratches. The only skin that created a custom scratch texture did not get implemented because Valve missed it on the initial pass, leaving it on the cutting room floor. You may have seen some of the more elaborate warpaints in the workshop that fully utilize custom-made templates, and say, well, if there's no tools in place, how are these skins made? The answer is, a few of us utilize an add-on that was created by a member of the community that allows us to bypass the signature check on the file that has everything added into Jungle Inferno. Everything added into Jungle Inferno is inside a single file called Protodefs. This includes things like the contract requests, the Blood Money gift shop, and more importantly, warpaints. Because Valve decided to group everything added in the Jungle Inferno into one big file, this forced them to lock that file from being modified because if it wasn't, you'd be able to modify things like the quests and the Blood Money shop for yourself. At the very least, the creator of the add-on forces you to be on insecure mode. The CSGO Workshop community also does something similar for visualizing their own workshop submissions. With this add-on, we were able to look at each individual template and see how they function. This allowed us to figure out exactly how specific warpaints work and test fixes in-engine. So to answer your question, this is how we make our custom skins. We use a community-made compiler to build our own Protodefs file to create warpaints. A different creator and I were working on a community-made warpaint importer and exporter as an attempt to streamline the process and bypass the need to modify the existing Protodefs file. It was nearly complete, with all that was needed was a specific file format so that way they could be properly exported, and at that point, warpaints would have been a drag-and-drop implementation for Valve. We both tried contacting various Valve employees about this, and so far we have not heard a response back. If the original creator of the warpaint was allowed to directly make the changes themselves prior to its addition into the game, then I would see no issues with not wanting to update the skin to fix issues. You made the mistake. But we need to rely on Valve to catch these things prior to the update dropping. For a point of comparison, let's look at a view of the other accepted items that are currently uploaded to the workshop and create a hypothetical scenario that warpaints currently go through. For unusual effects, you'd be limited to reskinning the effects that were originally made by Valve. You'd only be able to update the sprites loaded onto the effect and nothing else. In this scenario, you're reskinning nuts and bolts and replace the sprites with a different image that you want the color code removed from so that way that the new sprites aren't a dark brown. Valve accepts it, but upon implementation, they forget to remove that color code, leading to your effect not looking how you intended it to look. You email Valve about this, and when they respond to you, they say, sorry, people already unboxed this item, and they might like how it looks, so we'll not be making any changes. For hats, you'd be limited to only using hats that Valve had already made for that specific class. But what if you didn't want to use the Pyro's beanie for the Pyro? You think that the Tough Guy's toque in this situation would look better. You decide to reskin that hat, and then you request that Valve update the model to properly fit onto the Pyro's head because you currently do not have access to doing so yourself. Instead of Valve working with you on this, they either give that hat that you designed for the Pyro to the Heavy instead, or put the unchanged, poorly fitted model onto the Pyro, only for Valve to never go back and fix these things because they missed it upon initial implementation. For this to not to be only negatives, let's look at a positive example. You could think of the ability to custom map a warpaint to be of similar importance to how VScript was for mappers. Originally, if you wanted to do anything elaborate with your map, you needed to utilize a third-party add-on to run modified code to create things like Versus Axe and Hail, or require Valve to fully code in a custom game mode for you like they did with Player Destruction. But then Valve implemented a way to do this without the need of these modifications in place, or for Valve to step in and do it for you, and it revolutionized the type of maps that could be officially added into the game, such as the newly added Zombie Infection. Warpanes as a whole can be so much better. The reliance on Valve to make any of the technical changes has had a major impact on their overall potential, and if Warpanes are going to continue to be added to the game, they should have a proper importer like cosmetics do. Or at the very least, they should be more willing to make bug fixes or visual updates to skins like they've been allowing for unusual effects, cosmetics, and maps, especially when the creator can directly make the changes themselves. As a small addendum, this script was finished before Scream Fortress 15 came out, and I was going to use the most recent update to reword a few sections of the script to not instantly date the video, but there were no warpaints added during the update. I wanted to add something about that to the script, but there wasn't really a way of doing it without it coming across as passive-aggressive. I figured that the most straightforward and unbiased way to bring it up would just be to acknowledge that it had happened. As a whole, I hope that you now have a better understanding of the situation at hand, and I would like to thank my friend Bubba for helping me go over the script, as well as Two-Ton Moon for help with some of the visuals. Just to quickly add to the end of this, but if you want to discuss Warpaints or the video as a whole, feel free to join the Warpaint Discord server linked below. While our community is rather small at the moment, we always welcome anyone who has a passing interest in what goes into the creation of these things. It also has a bunch of resources for making warpaints, such as the Valve-made overlays, alongside the tools to create custom-coded warpaints. Okay, thank you, bye!